Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan. I'm the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome everyone.
And we've got two goals tonight. Number one, to make anyone who listens understand what Bitcoin is and how that relates to other how most cryptocurrencies work. Number two, not to bore you to death. Because I know even at the very mention of cryptocurrency, you know, some people are kind of like, oh man, not more about cryptocurrency. And I was telling Danny before we started recording that, like, when Bitcoin first became an issue, like when it got in the news that one Bitcoin is worth like $10,000 or something, a lot of people did podcasts on them. And I listened to a lot of them because I don't have time to sit and research something to figure out how it works. And all the ones I listened to, while they explained some, they didn't explain the questions that I had as they were explaining. And so I felt like I don't really understand this. And then as, you know, when people talked about actually using it as a currency that would become, you know, something that most people would accept, I just didn't buy it because I didn't understand it. But it's not like understanding it would make it easier to accept, because I mean, like, I have to assume other people don't understand it if I don't understand it, you know?
Yeah, most people who use it don't understand it.
If you have a dollar, you understand the dollar. Even if you put the dollar in the bank and the physical dollar is no longer part of it, and even if the bank wire transfers that dollar to another bank, all that's understandable. It's not real difficult. But with Bitcoin, it does get difficult. It's not understandable. And that's why, that was the first reason I thought, I don't think this is gonna, it might get useful somehow, but I don't think it's going to be a main currency for any big group of people. But still.
Right. And, well, or, you know, I think the question that we could ask is, let's assume we think of Bitcoin as a prototype, a experiment in, you know, cryptocurrency, like a social experiment in cryptocurrency. So the question would be, can any conceivable cryptocurrency serve, you know, a nation's economic needs for currency, or a significant part of a society's economic needs for a currency? I think that, and I don't know that I'm prepared entirely to answer that question, or to answer's the wrong word. I don't know that I'm prepared to offer an opinion about that question. But I think that's what a lot of people, you know, people who get into the Bitcoin thing, a lot of them are going to end up eventually losing their shirts, you know, whatever. Yeah. But the question is there going to be some societal value out of that? And along with a lot of other cryptocurrencies, there's several dozen cryptocurrencies out there, you know, doing their thing. And each one is vying for, you know, the holy grail of the cryptocurrency is that it is exactly that, a currency, not just, you know, a lot of people treat Bitcoin as an investment. Oh, I think Bitcoins are going to go up in value. I'll buy some and then I'll sell them later when they're up in value. But in the meantime, you've bought and sold nothing. And you're just kind of speculating, playing on a market that, you know, there's no real reason for the market to even exist if that's all anybody does to it. The only reason for Bitcoin to have a value is as currency. Just like you can say, well, I think, you know, based on the way various countries are trading, I think the euro is going to increase in value relative to the dollar. So I'm going to buy some euros, and then later, when its value has gone way up, I'm going to use it to trade it back for dollars, and I'll have more dollars then. But the euro itself doesn't increase in value because people buy euros. It increases because of what euros buy. So, and right now, no cryptocurrency, quite enjoys that reality.
Yeah. And the thing is, what occurs to me as you're talking about this is, a lot of times the popularity of something grows out of something unrelated almost. For example, you remember a long time ago, if you wanted to have sound on your computer, sound files, you turned, say, a CD into a WAV file, and it was ginormous. Yeah. And there were different programs that would compress that, and different ways of doing it, and some were better than others. But one way came out in front, and it had nothing to do with how good it was. It was simply the fact that the illegal transfer of files used that way. So the MP3, because of Napster, that's why it got popular, and it's pretty much dominated ever since. Right. There's a couple people who keep holding on to other forms because they don't, like MP3s, but MP3 is still the way to do it.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin did start to gain popularity mostly. Well, there were people who thought they were investing. There was that. But most of its usage has been in black markets. And most of it illegal.
Right. Yeah. Well, wasn't the recent pipeline hack a Bitcoin payoff, or was that a real payoff?
I think most of these I don't know about that one in particular, but most of the payoffs are with Bitcoin. What would be funny is if Bitcoin suddenly became worthless, and all these people who made millions of dollars via Bitcoin suddenly have no money.
Well, yeah, but the crooks who are using it, like the ones who try to get me to pay them because they claim that they've used my computer's non-existent camera to record me watching porn.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure that these characters, when they do have money in Bitcoin, they find some way immediately to dump it into a real currency somewhere in the world.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're, think of it.
That seems like the smart thing to do, but but also if you think about it, which we'll get into later, but the more movement that happens with the money, and when you're talking about large amounts, like millions of dollars, the more the money shifts hands, the easier it will be to find where it came from. In my understanding of
with Bitcoin
blockchains and the records,
so some of them with Bitcoin specifically, it might be that way. There are others that's actually not the case.
Really?
And we can talk about some of those too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just start with Bitcoin. It's, we keep hearing about it, and I don't even know where to start with how to. The very first question you would ask is, what is a Bitcoin? And
what the heck is a Bitcoin?
Yeah. And is it like a dollar?
It's a, they'll say, well, it's a digital currency. So you have like your wallet on your computer, and it stores it as bits, and then you can spend it. So, well, okay, but...
Okay, like PayPal?
Yeah, like why can't I... If I could give it to someone else, I could make a copy of my wallet, and then I could give it to someone else again, and then someone else again. And, why not? So that's kind of the thing that drives much of what Bitcoin is to avoid that problem. They call it the double spend problem.
Okay.
And
so
so
it's
and the way
like
they do it
is to keep you from copying your money.
Yeah.
Do you know if you have a certain scanners, very high quality printers, if you try to copy a $1 bill, will shut down, and a dealer actually has to come.
Currency?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And if it sees a certain color,
you put $1 on there? Don't do that.
I know that Canon was one of them, and there were, I think, There were a couple of them. Not all of them would do it, but a lot of them bowed down to the U.S. government and said, okay, and we were told as technicians, if you have this error code, you have to contact your supervisor. That supervisor has to contact the FBI, whatever. Not always. I mean, we had the codes to reset it, but we weren't supposed to do it without getting in touch with our supervisors.
Wow. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew about that some of them wouldn't copy currencies. I didn't know they shut down and required a field service call.
Yeah. Especially if you've got like a machine that costs $30,000 and you're at work and it's like, hey, I wonder what would happen. And so you hit the copy button, all of a sudden it's shut down and the company's like, what happened?
Or
somebody tried to copy it off.
This
poor
like
clerk.
For the sake of like you're printing up a flyer and in the flyer you're promising, like let's say it's a flyer for a raffle at church. And, hey, you can win. And you have a dollar bill. You can win money, and you I'll just stick a dollar bill in there and copy that to make my master.
Or what if you draw in another face or something, and put my face on a $1 bill?
That's right.
Because it's a specific color that turns it off.
Oh, it's not
the image
necessarily
itself.
The design.
Yeah, there's a specific color in the dollar bill. Now these are early
combination
machines.
Maybe of colors. Yeah.
I mean, this is when color printing was still. This is when quality color printing was still new with like toner machines and small inkjet machines.
So
anyway,
the digital currency problem is you don't need a fancy copier. And here's the thing: take that $30,000 copier. I don't care if you have a $300,000 copier. If you copy that dollar and then take that copy and make a copy of it, and then take that copy and make a copy of it, you won't get more than a few copies in to where it's obviously degraded.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is with, in what we call the analog world. But now we're talking about digital. That's why the whole MP3.
Hold on a second. I gotta.
Sure.
Hey, every time. Someone has to go over and turn on the TV for Grandpa and get a show for him. But it's like, I'm the only person in the world who can do anything. But I don't. They do it here all the time. But she calls in, well, it keeps doing this. It keeps doing this. I'm like, these are simple things. Why do I have to be involved in everything?
Yeah, that's kind of frustrating.
Oh, well. So I had to... I think, how you got a remote and it's got buttons and sometimes one button gets stuck?
Puts it into... Oh, okay, yeah, it'll get stuck down.
So it sounds like that's what was going on, but oh well. So I had to... Hopefully she got it fixed, but I don't even know where we were now.
No, we were talking about copies and the double spend, and I was explaining how the copier after a few copies of copies, it it degrades. But the thing about digital, and this is why services like Napster were such a threat to the recording industries, because once you have that digital copy, the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy, no matter how many times, retains the original quality.
So all is perfect like the first one.
That's right. Exactly. So that's, when we talk about cryptocurrency, okay, you have your wallet and it's got, something called a key, and that, can be used to unlock the amount of money in your wallet, and then you can spend it, but you can make as many copies of your wallet as you want. So how do you solve the double spend problem? And that's where they come up with this concept of what's called a public ledger.
So before, with something like PayPal, the way they would keep that from happening is PayPal's got a ledger, and you tell PayPal where to send the money, and PayPal keeps track of the money, and you couldn't tell them to do it twice because they'd be like, no, you already spent that money. You don't have it anymore.
You have to log into their server. You don't have a copy of your PayPal wallet anywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
The money's with them, or it's with your bank, and they go into you provide them, access to your bank or maybe a credit card, whatever it is. But the thing is, PayPal keeps track, and they have the ledger and everything. You have to go to them in order to do any transaction whatsoever. It's completely centralized. Okay. And the thing about cryptocurrency, the key that cryptocurrency tries to unlock here is this idea of making currency convenient, like regular cash, because you just carry it around. It's easy. You pull it out, hand $1 from you to the other guy. He's got the dollar. If somebody goes and gets that dollar from him, there's no way in the world to determine that dollar ever belonged to you. I mean, now maybe if you left some fingerprints on it or something like that. But my point is that in the nature of the transaction, there's no way to tell where that dollar came from or that you ever had that particular dollar. And so cryptocurrency tries to be more like cash rather than something like a PayPal or a bank system with accounts that you transfer money between people or whatever. But in order to do that, they have to have some way of keeping track that, you had this money, now you no longer have that. And so they developed this concept of what's called a public ledger, which another word for it would be a decentralized ledger, which is it's just a fancy way of saying we spread out among a bunch of computers copies of the transactions that occur. And so what happens is when you have your wallet, you use a certain key that applies to your wallet, and you have to provide that key to somebody else and use that to encrypt and sign a transaction that says, I'm giving so-and-so so many of my Bitcoins or so much of my Bitcoin value. I think an actual Bitcoin is a lot of money within the Bitcoin world. It's like, if you think of a Bitcoin is more like, say, a $10,000 bill, and you want to deal in pennies, typically. So they've got denomination. I don't know if denominations isn't the right word, but fractions of a Bitcoin that you spend at a time. And so you say, I want to give this much of a Bitcoin to this other person. And so you have to exchange keys. You have to know the key of the guy you're giving it to, and you have to supply your key that you're giving it from. And then that transaction has to be picked up. You have to submit it to some node that is managing this public ledger. But that's not the end of the story, because you could go and submit it to that node, and then you could go spend that exact same coin using a different node to record the transaction, send it to somebody else.
So if there's two people keeping track of the public ledger, you tell each one of them something different. Right.
And then you've still got this problem. But the way Bitcoin does it, and the way a lot of these public ledger schemes do it, it's not just a couple of nodes that are keeping track of this stuff. There's maybe hundreds.
When you say nodes, you're talking about you're talking about a computer
keeps the ledger. Yeah, a computer that keeps the ledger, the storage and computation. And so what they do is one of them will get the transaction, and they take that along with a number of other transactions together, a few transactions at a time, and they add it to the ledger, and then they share that with other ledgers, and it goes out and other ledgers all kind of share with each other, and it kind of propagates out so that eventually it becomes, okay, this is the new consensus fact that this transaction happened. And what happens is if you tried to double spend it, at one point that transaction, that coin that you tried to spend in the one case here and the other case there, that's going to conflict, and a node is going to see, or a number of nodes are going to see that, wait a minute, there's a fork. Both of these ledgers can't be true. They contradict each other. Yeah. And they have a way of resolving that and saying, okay, we're just going to choose this one as true, the other one's false, all the transactions past the fork are null and void, everybody's now on the page of this one. And so that's why when you spend a Bitcoin, like if a merchant actually accepts Bitcoin as payment for something, you go into a store and you buy bread and say, oh, instead of cash, I'm going to use Bitcoin to buy this bread. And so you transfer it. That merchant, that store, is going to have access to the network and the nodes. And then he's going to want to wait for a certain amount of time for that monetary transaction, that Bitcoin transaction, to become the standard knowledge of the system, so that he knows that you didn't just spend that money somewhere else. And then he knows, okay, yeah, I really do have your money now. And then the transaction's complete. And that can take some minutes to occur, for it to propagate out like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, here's the thing about this public ledger. The way Bitcoin does it, and there are a few different ways of doing it. Bitcoin does it in a thing that's called a blockchain, which really just means that it's really literally what it sounds like, a chain of blocks. So if you think of a block of memory that contains some data in it, and that data in the case of Bitcoin is transactions, and that block is validated and authenticated based on certain computations that are performed called hashes that link each block to the previous block. And so you've got the whole chain of blocks way back from the very beginning when Bitcoins are injected into the system. And actually even today you can mine Bitcoins. They're increasingly rare, and that's by design. But you mine Bitcoins by solving certain computational problems. But then once you do have that, you can go spend it and add it to the overall currency of the system. But as these chains of blocks get attached to each other, and each one is authenticated by the fact that it links properly through some computation to the previous one, and there's no way within the Bitcoin model to say, okay, we're just going to accept where all the money is right now. We're going to lose the history, cut it off, discard it, and we'll start over, and now we're doing new blocks. In other words, the blockchain, the public ledger, can only increase. It's always append only. They never take it all and collapse it into a state. And so what happens, I'm not sure that there's a cryptocurrency out there that this isn't a reality. What happens is that as more is spent, the storage needs to record the state of the system, who has what money, increases. And it keeps increasing kind of exponentially as more people enter into the system and start engaging in transactions. So now this does not seem to be a concern of anybody who actually works on cryptocurrencies. There seems to be a fundamental assumption out there that, hey, it's going to grow, let's say, geometrically, but storage, I said exponentially. I think the assumption is it'll grow geometrically. The assumption is that storage space and the availability of storage space at a given price is going to grow exponentially, and therefore the storage space available to maintain these public ledgers is always going to outstrip the storage needs of the public ledger.
Well, I would think that, okay, so to kind of recap this, the blockchain is a record of transactions.
Yeah.
And in order to
each block
make
in the
a transaction,
chain has a few transactions in it. Yeah.
Yeah. In order to make a transaction, as in order to spend Bitcoin, you add some data to this transaction saying, I gave this guy 1 Bitcoin. And that goes into the record. And that guy, let's say, gives half a Bitcoin to one guy and half a Bitcoin to another guy. Now there's 2 records added to that blockchain. all of it going back to the original, to the very first Bitcoin ever found and ever spent.
Right.
And every time somebody spends and every time a new person enters in, the record just keeps getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And their thoughts are, but technology gets better, as in we always seem to be able to make more memory in smaller spaces, so that's not going to be a problem.
Right.
But aside from needing more memory, each transaction has to, not each transaction, each edit to the public ledger, each addition to the public ledger, doesn't that also have to resubmit a new ledger? So that not only are you adding to the space needed, but you're using an ever increasing amount of bandwidth in order to transfer that data back and forth.
Kind of. The way I understand it, not really. The bandwidth, because the nodes that actually maintain ledgers, and I think anybody can like set up and become one of these nodes, I'm a node, and you can. Oh, you are a Bitcoin node. So because like the Bitcoin
I
ledger
wanted
right
to
now
accept it
is,
in case somebody wanted to use it to pay me to fix their printer. So I thought, I'll accept Bitcoin.
Oh, okay, but you can accept Bitcoin without being a ledger node.
Yeah, I know.
It's like several hundred gigabytes big right now.
Right.
So these ledger nodes, there's protocols for sharing, and if you decide, I'm going to be a ledger node, and then you'll acquire the ledger from a variety of different nodes. It probably does, kind of does like a BitTorrent kind of thing. But then once you have that, my understanding is that it's only the new transactions that get distributed everywhere.
Okay.
With maybe the last few previous, and it has, and so it's kind of the there's a point at which you're not transferring the entire multi-hundred gigabit ledger every time you do a transaction, but there is a bandwidth problem in the sense that in order to spend money, you have to engage in a computation, and that computation requires a certain amount of computer processing power, and so there's a limit to the number of transactions per second that can occur within the Bitcoin system,
and that's those
called
transactions
bandwidth. That's called the scalability problem of cryptocurrencies.
Okay, but those computations that have to be handled, that's what the Bitcoin mining computers are doing? Is that correct?
Well, the computations...
In order to find Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, that's one kind of computation, but in order to simply spend Bitcoin, or to receive Bitcoin, a computation has to occur. Every single blockchain addition to the ledger requires a computation that makes the system cap out at about 7 transactions per second. 7 to 10, depending.
Really?
Yeah. It's a real...
7 to 10 per second.
That's nothing. I mean, thinking about
if you took that worldwide,
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that's 7 to 10 per second on a given node, and then the nodes themselves have ways to share them as long as they don't conflict. So it's 7 to 10 times the number of nodes that can accept, the transactions.
Okay.
So that's an aspect that, I guess I should say to our audience, I'm not a cryptocurrency expert or anything like that. I've spent a little bit of time. I kind of wish that I had been a cryptocurrency geek back when they were asking people to mine Bitcoins. I could have mined a few and maybe gotten a couple $1,000 out of it.
Couple $1,000. Yeah.
I probably would have sold it.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
There's so many things I wish I had done. Because we're talking about investing. So, all right, back in 9/11, remember, it was almost like it was it was patriotic to enter into the stock market at that time because it's like,
right.
no, we're not going to let them shut us down. So like every good American, I thought, okay, I've got very small amount of money, but I'm going to try to get into the stock market.
Yeah.
Anything I even touched just dropped immediately. And, you know, with Trump getting in office, I thought, well, maybe I'll try this again. And I did a little bit more research on the stuff I was going to try to invest in. Mm-hmm. But again, everything I touched just dropped.
Well,
so here's the thing, Vicky, you know, she did her own thing. She had $100 too. We're talking about a very small amount of money.
Yeah,
I was just like, I'm going to take $100 and see what happens. I've got nothing now. Vicky, who also had $100, now has like $650 within the past few months. Everything she invests in goes up. So I said, all right, I'm just turning over my wallet to you. You just invest whatever you want with whatever's left of my measly.
Now it's $10.
I don't know. I'm surprised, Vicky. I'll bet I'm going to find out someday that she actually did invest in Bitcoin and we have thousands of dollars to spend. She seems to have that luck.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing to do would have back, you know, when you first invested and it all tanked and went down, just to hang on to that anyway. And then when Trump came around, it would go back up and you'd already have spent your money and then you just sell it.
Yeah. Well, there are even some Chapter 11s and some bankruptcies.
Like
and
complete
I
losses.
literally lost
that's
everything.
Wow,
I didn't have.
Don't invest
I only
in my
had a
company.
few $100 anyway, but it was just. It's crazy how unlucky I am in that regard. So I haven't put any money into Bitcoin because I know exactly what'll happen.
Yeah, well, you know, when it's time to crash the Bitcoin market, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll buy short, and then you invest.
Yeah. I'll invest and then we'll make some money. Okay, so I mean, you're limited by the number of transactions that can even happen, and
per second.
You know, even you go to a giant department store, say, or giant, e-tailers like Amazon, they do many much more than 7 per second.
Yeah.
7 transactions per second.
Right.
But even physical stores can do more than that, you know?
Yeah.
I guess it would even out.
Walmart will have a row of cash registers open. If those are all open and people are all in those lines, you easily exceed 7 per second.
And of course, as you said, the other problem here is that there has to be an agreement between all these different nodes.
Before the
takes
transaction is
time.
Considered finalized. It can be
and
minutes.
So, and typically it doesn't happen in minutes. Typically it happens in days, doesn't it? Or at least it used to.
I mean, as the number of nodes grow and you get more communication between them, I think it happens faster.
Okay,
but it's
I know that it used to be
it's
days.
Not instantaneous. It's not
because I looked into spending Bitcoin once, and I wanted to use Bitcoin to buy something. And how do I get Bitcoin? And he said, do this, and in 4 days you'll have Bitcoin. And I'm like,
4 days.
I was thinking in 4 minutes.
If I want Canadian dollars, I just go into the exchange and I have it in 4 seconds.
Yeah. So it's even accepting that is such a huge hurdle for something like cryptocurrency that I couldn't see it becoming real popular without some kind of need being there.
Yeah.
There has to be a need for it.
Now, these are problems. The scalability problem, the ledger size problem, like I said, nobody's really working on that. Nobody really thinks that's a problem. But there
to
are
me,
some
that
other
was
problems.
the first problem I thought of, and I
know,
read
me
some
too.
forums.
I was like, really? It grows forever? You never lose transaction history? That's like, imagine okay, we're going to have a currency in the United States, and for anybody to spend $1, even just to hand $1 from one person to the other, you're not allowed to do that. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you go to, your local public ledger and you write down, that dollar transacted between you and him, and you write down the dollar serial number and so on and so forth. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like, wow, the level of currency transaction tracking is so extreme with
especially since even right now, very, very few people use it. If you multiplied what people are doing right now by 1 billion, then, I mean,
yeah,
it could be fine as long as it's used in black market situations. But if every single store owner is making transactions with it, it's going to grow that I can't see how anyone would not think, oh, wait a minute, this is a real problem. Not even a little problem. This is a huge problem. And I read on some forums where a couple people were talking about it, and one of the mentioned ways to solve this is to have certain supernodes that would keep track of all of the ledger, and then various kind of subnodes that would keep track of certain sections of the. Yeah. And one of the things that were pointed out is basically now you're talking about banks again.
Yeah, kind of. That's yeah. So you're adding a layer of centralization, and except the only thing would be if the idea of the supernodes is that it's not like there's certain machines allowed to be supernodes. It's that there's the supernodes are still machines that people or companies contribute and put it online as a supernode. It's still decentralized and it's still based on somebody being willing to give up that amount of storage and processing in order to serve that purpose. And
well, unless it took us like an entire server to do that.
Well, I'm thinking it would.
Then it's not just like giving up a part of your computer. It's like designating a big computer to do that. But means
if you're a company
money.
that, right? But it could be like if you're a company that sort of thrives in that world, you might go ahead and say, we're going to dedicate a Bitcoin super server.
Yeah. Okay.
And just put it on the internet there and let it do its thing. But the thing is, I can't get past the reality of the permanent and complete ledger. Every transaction to, from, and amount is recorded permanently. And in Bitcoin, now there are other currencies that are working on this problem, and some actually have solutions to this problem. But in Bitcoin, it's sort of publicly auditable what transactions occurred. So it's like transparent, like if money transfers from Bitcoin wallet A to Bitcoin wallet B, everybody can go and look at that. And so if the identity of the owner of Bitcoin wallet B or Bitcoin wallet A ever becomes known, well, then everybody knows that person sent or received money to this other wallet. That's so there's kind of you lose the anonymity that's associated with cash, with the Bitcoin way of doing things.
I mean, if you have wallet A is under kind of constant surveillance by the FBI, which I don't even know if they understand how to surveil things anymore. But let's say the old FBI who used to surveil things.
Yeah, the Hoover FBI.
They're keeping track of wallet A. Every time wallet A gives money to another wallet, that wallet becomes suspect now, and it's another wallet being watched by the authority. I'm talking about in cases of crime investigation that
crime or
generally cash is how you get around this.
Yeah.
But crime is just, how do I say this? We think of crime as in breaking the law and doing criminal things, general immorality, but at some point, I think anyone with half a brain recognizes the fact that eventually crime will be being a Christian. And Christians will need a way to spend money with each other without being investigated.
As Christian, right.
And because that's how society goes. They just tend to, it's as societies kind of crumble, Christians are the ones who are attacked. And a lot of people think of Bitcoin as the answer to underground, because that's how it's used now.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of underground currency scenarios.
They use it to pay for drugs all the time.
Yeah. And that will be now, and the thing is, it can serve that as long as the personal link between the wallet, which is just a series of numbers, and the actual human never becomes known to anybody. As long as you can preserve that as a secret, Bitcoin works for that. But the thing is, you can still use the transaction history of Bitcoin to analyze movements of money in general. And so you might not be able to identify the one guy who's receiving everything, but you can identify all the people who have given money to him. And then you can, because maybe they're not keeping their wallet secret. And then you can start to see patterns and that kind of stuff. And so there are cryptocurrencies out there, and they don't solve the ledger size problem, but they do have true anonymity. So, for example, there's one that's based on what's called called CryptoNote is the basis for one of them. CryptoNote preserves the anonymity of the sender and the receiver, except to each other. So the sender and receiver both know, if I'm sending, I know I know the number of the account I'm sending to or the wallet that I'm sending to, and if I'm receiving, I know the number of the wallet I'm receiving from. But within the ledger that they maintain, they make it so that anybody trying to review the ledger from the outside only sees a series, like a set of transactions where money might have come from any one of these wallets and might have been sent to any one of those wallets, and might be any amount up to a certain amount, so that even though the exact exchange is recorded in a way that the money is useful and usable as money, you can never actually go and reacquire the information of the exchange afterwards.
Okay, but then how?
So you have full anonymity without auditable transaction history.
Doesn't that make double spending a little bit easier?
From my understanding, no, because it still has to resolve at some point. There still has to be a point where they say, "Oh, wait a minute, we've got ledgers that are out of sync, and one of them has to be accepted over the other," and there's still a part of the protocol that resolves that. It's just that what it does is kind of it's like, let's suppose
it's kind of like how a VPN would work,
almost. But let's suppose that you're going to send $100 to somebody specific. Mm-hmm. So what you do, and what you get a bunch of your neighbors to do, is you all address letters. You address an envelope to the person that you're sending the $100 to. It's a $100 bill. You put in an envelope, you address it, but you also address, 100 other envelopes to 100 other addresses, and you get 100 of your neighbors to all address 100 envelopes to the one person that you're sending the $100 to, and you all mail your envelopes at once. Okay, well, who actually sent the $100 to who? Nobody's going to be able to figure that out.
Except for the guy receiving it.
Yeah, and the guy sending it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it uses things like that.
Okay.
And there's ways to make that efficient within, within crypto protocols and stuff like that.
Yeah. Another one of the problems I see here is that in order to do any of this stuff, you need some kind of device.
You need computers and networking. Yeah. You got to have your you got to plug in. You can't be off the grid.
I guess you could have a simple card with a number on it.
Which is your wallet number?
Yeah, so a wallet number would be like a bank account number or a credit card number, but it doesn't really take the place of cash because still you're part of the system instead of being able to just use cash.
Yeah, it's not anonymous.
Yeah.
And I know that there are those, I don't know that people really believe and accept that there are like powerful people in the world who really want a sort of like everything is controlled by governments kind of a world.
Yeah.
But there are people who would like to see currency completely replaced by electronic transactions. Whether those transactions are, credit cards, which are maintained through transaction warehouses and then the money held in banks, or cryptocurrencies with auditable ledgers. If we're going into a world where cryptocurrency is a reality and that you're not going to get along without it, well, it would be much nicer to go into a world where something like CryptoNote is the kind of protocol used.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who are concerned about the anonymity aspect, that this idea of preserving the anonymity of transactions. It's getting a lot of attention from a lot of very smart people who are developing these things. But a lot of the people who would like to see a cashless society aren't interested in those. They want the kind that you can track the transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, that is
for exactly the reason you said.
Yeah. It's much easier to control any group of people when you can watch the transactions, B, if you can possibly control the transactions.
Now, of course, the other aspect of it is that is really going to have governments like in a tizzy, is taxability. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'll cut your lawn, it'll cost you, 0.075 Bitcoin. And then you set up a business and you're cutting people's lawn for Bitcoin. It's like, well, what does that mean in terms of U.S. currency? They don't have a tax for Bitcoin. They only have a tax for dollars. There's no account. Well, not only that, but unless, there's no account, like a bank account that they can say, like if you wanted to not pay taxes on those, that income today, you have to say, well, pay me in cash. Yeah. If you say, pay me in Bitcoin, well, first of all, then you've got something that you can then use that Bitcoin, assuming Bitcoin achieves, let's say, through some development, let's say it achieves a status as currency. Well, you say pay me in Bitcoin, and then you can go use that Bitcoin for this and that. You can transfer it between wallets. You can make it practically impossible to trace specifically that you, as a person, as a human being, had any actual income. Especially in there's small nothing to amounts. Tax. Yeah, especially if they're small amounts. They come in and then, and they're going everywhere, and maybe you've got 30 wallets that are never traced to you, and the wallet that people pay to have their lawn cut for your landscaping business is never associated. You don't ever do anything that reveals its association to you personally, and so forth. Well, governments around the world could lose the ability to tax incomes if something like this became a reality. Now, I know that some of the people who are interested in these kinds of things, that's exactly what they would like. I mean, some of them are not leftist, centralist one world government types. They're more anarchist types. They're more, hey, what do we need the government for? We certainly don't need the government to manage our exchanges between each other. So let's just make up our own and go and run with it. And that's something that cryptocurrencies could serve, but they can only serve that as long as the broader infrastructure of computers and networking and communications and so on and so forth continues to exist.
Yeah.
And that's one of the downfalls of it, is that it relies on that stuff. As soon as, if that stuff were to ever go away, let's say we had a, World War III type of event or something like that. What do they say? I don't know how World War III will be fought, but World War IV is going to be fought with sticks and stones. Yeah. So let's say we had a World War III type of event or something like that. And it's like, oh, everything that was in cryptocurrencies is now gone, wiped away. There's, and there's no recovering it. Whereas you can still, mine gold and stamp it out and put a king's face on it and say, yep, this is a,
this is now the official currency.
This is the currency of
XYZ and
whatever. Yeah. And then people can figure out how much a loaf of bread cost and that kind of stuff, or how many loaves of bread you can buy with it if it's a gold coin. So
now in current days, okay, look, ever since I don't even mean technology, computer technology, but with at the start of the industrial age, there were talks and stories of machines getting so big that suddenly it all collapses and we're back to sticks and stones. That's always been a thing that people talk about. They always say the system's going to collapse. I was watching, what show was it the other night? With the guys go down the river in the canoe. Deliverance.
Oh, Deliverance. Yeah.
So there he is. They're in the canoe and he's talking about the system. And this is in the 70s? And he's talking about how the system's going to collapse. And then it's going to be back to survival instincts and stuff like that. So that I know that's been talked about for a long time, but most of our system nowadays relies on communication, and a lot of that communication relies on satellite links. And right now we have kind of a race between the larger nations for space superiority.
Sort of dominance, yeah. That's why Trump wanted to start the Space Force.
Yeah, Trump saw this and saw how big a deal it was. I don't think Biden understands it. If he did understand it, I don't think he would care, and I don't think his handlers care, because probably his handlers are on, I don't know. It seems like they're on the side of China anyway.
Yeah,
so,
it's like they want China
but I guess my point is, China could, if they really gain space dominance, they could shut down most of our systems just by eliminating the satellites.
Right.
Now, of course, we've created these huge networks that don't use the satellites.
Right. You can
when you're driving city to city, you're not using a satellite usually.
Right. You can make a phone call from anywhere in the United States to anywhere without using satellites, and you can't pretty much anywhere. I mean, there's pockets, sure, and you can send a data packet, a computer data packet, from anywhere to anywhere in the United States without using satellites.
Right.
So at least we've got that.
I don't know this for sure, but I think
so much information. I mean, even though you can do that, there's so much information, even within the United States, that relies on satellites for distribution.
Even if the information itself isn't being distributed by the satellites, the ways to distribute the information is more or less controlled by satellites. You know what I mean? So it's like satellites are a part of it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I was bringing that up because I know to most people, when you say if we lose the current situation, and people are like, okay, you guys have been talking about that for years, I'm just pointing out how it's more and more easy for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been like a long time. It's been a reality. For example, that like broadcast, like TV, the concept of TV networks like NBC. They have the local affiliates. Well, how do you think they get their broadcast programming to the local affiliates? It's through satellites. Even though you can send data from, point to point in the United States, we have enough of a network infrastructure to be able to do that, but that isn't the only means by which communication is done, and it doesn't serve the whole of communication needs within the United States. It's just that if we were somehow to completely lose access to satellites through some action of, say, China or something like that, we would find a way within our country to say, okay, wait a minute, let's get ourselves right here and make it so we communicate with each other, and then we can, because taking out other countries' satellites, that's like an act of war. In today's age,
at the same time, we're having all these cyber attacks that are apparently bringing down some very simple systems.
I heard like meatpacking industry the meat industry is getting hit or something.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about that when we go over the news. Anyway, it's not out of the realm for things to come to a halt suddenly.
Yeah, right. Or, if not to a halt, suppose China took over, the major telecoms, Verizon, Sprint, Singular, so on and so forth, the network, wireless and satellite carriers and so forth. And now those telecoms refuse to transmit and convey information, data packets that look like they're being used to implement protocols that aren't approved for, the network. But, protocols like CryptoNote, for example.
Yeah. These people are trying to spend money.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute.
We don't want them to spend money without us taxing it or seeing it anyway.
You guys are trying to keep secrets. Wait a minute. You're engaging in, you're a GNU-net node. You're trying to set up a private network of peers that we can't look into and see what you're talking about. No, you can't do that. If you want to send data, if you want to transact with your bank, and you know what, in China, I guarantee that they don't have end-to-end encryption in China occurring. If you want to transact with your bank, you don't establish an end-to-end encryption between you and the bank. Instead, you establish a encryption with the government node that's in the middle, and then they'll establish an encryption to your bank, and then you can transact through that.
Yeah.
Either that, or they just force the banks to, give them all the transactions anyway, which is probably more likely the way it goes. But the point is, you don't have an expectation even of privacy or even the right to establish a private communications in China. So imagine that. Yeah. Imagine a country where you do not have the right to establish a private communication with another person. That's the way it is in China.
I don't think most people even understand that. I mean, this is really 1984. Everything's watched by the government in China. You don't have private conversations. If
you want to sell, cars or, anything computerized in China, and they have secret keys that are built into them in order to, protect their integrity and so forth, you are required to hand those keys over to the Chinese government. That's why every reputable manufacturer that sells stuff in China has two product lines. They have the one that they sell to China because they got to give China the keys, and then they have the one that they sell everywhere else in the free world.
Yeah. Okay. We're a little bit...
Yeah, we've gone a little
bit off now. I think I can't think of any more questions that I would ask, but I don't know.
I think that's.
I'm always scared because we have a certain amount of understanding.
Yeah,
that we already get certain things, and I'm always afraid that some guys listening going, "You guys didn't explain anything. I still don't know what the hell a Bitcoin is." I'm always afraid of that because I hear other podcasters doing it. And not necessarily about Bitcoin, but they'll talk about, say, they'll talk about a certain concept, and they'll say they're going to explain it, and then they start talking about it as if you already know what it is, and it's like,
oh,
well,
right.
But so I guess if we did not do a good job of this, and anyone hears this,
I mean, you
tell us
in the comments, right?
Yeah, it's open to comments. We just don't get very many commenters, but and we'll.
And you know what?
Heck,
if we
I'll
get
delete
any
it and do it again.
Questions, well, yeah, well, we won't delete it, but if we get any
if we get specific questions, we'll answer
we
them.
will answer them. Yeah. So that's, especially on this topic, because I'll be able to look up and find the answers and find it and understand it in a way that I can explain it in a way that you can understand it. Being our listener. So, just ask us if we've left any. I mean, there's a lot that we haven't explained, but I've tried to explain kind of the salient aspects of it that relate to why it can be problematic in various aspects of going forward in today's world.
Well, it's a matter of, okay, so the podcasts that I've heard that kind of explain the blockchain, perhaps the people explaining it don't understand it as well as I did upon hearing it, and that's why they never asked the question, well, wait a minute, doesn't that thing just keep getting bigger?
And the answer is yes. I think it's up to like 300 gigabytes now is the Bitcoin ledger size.
Yeah, it's big. But I think hopefully we've explained it to the point where if you understand it enough to ask certain questions, then you almost understand it enough to find the answer real quickly. You know what I mean?
Right. But don't let that dissuade you from asking.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to answer the questions too.
Okay. I guess we can get into news.
Yeah, let's talk about some
news. Okay. You know what? I want to get into the ransomware stuff and stuff like that first.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that. So a series
so
of
there was
cyber attacks, right?
Yeah, there was a steamship authority, the ferry service in Massachusetts, that was hit.
So what do these guys actually do? I mean, I can't imagine they like take over like a ferry boat. They like hack into a ferry. So we're going to steer your ferry.
Yeah. So I don't.
I don't think it's like that, right?
All it says is ransomware attack affects the steamship authority. That's what it says.
You know, like it was a ransomware that got into their accounting system or something.
Okay, but isn't that backed up? Can't they just... Couldn't you just take the computer and throw it away?
Delete it.
And put a new computer
bring a new server
and then...
online.
Boom. There,
bring your
we're
back online. It's I mean, it
I
wouldn't
do
be
have
backed up to the minute.
a little bit to talk about that.
Okay.
I can shed some light into some of these things. Not necessarily any of these specific industries, but I am in an industry where I can see some problems. Mm-hmm. So you buy a machine, and I mean, most people go through their lives without understanding the level of, what's the word?
Complexity?
How something performs very specific tasks.
Oh,
and you get a smaller and smaller tasks.
Yeah. How many machines are very dedicated in their function?
Yeah, and it's very specified. Specified isn't the word I'm looking for.
Specialized?
It's right there on the edge of my mind. Specialized. It's weird that I couldn't think up that word. Most people don't realize how specialized a machine has to get. For example, I work on a machine that, those, the filters that you get for your furnace. Mm-hmm. It's usually kind of some kind of stuff that the air can pass through.
Yeah.
And then that is surrounded by like a cardboard frame.
Right.
So I work on a machine that a giant roll of paper feeds into a machine, and it cuts those frames, and then my specific portion of it prints something on those frames.
Okay.
And that's all it does.
Talk about how it's specialized.
There's a whole building. Yeah.
And this
there's
is
a whole
after it's
building
been cut that it's
of machines that just do that.
It prints after it's been cut?
Huh?
It prints on it after it's been cut?
No, it prints on it before it's cut.
Okay, so the roll's coming in and it's printing and then getting cut. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but talk about specialized.
All I mean is you've got machines that do very, very specific things that are only a very small part of any product that you buy. Yeah. So a pencil, just think about all the parts in a pencil and all the different things that have to happen to make that pencil. Mm-hmm. Everything from the manufacturing of the pencil to how it gets delivered to a warehouse and put out on the store floor.
Yeah. You don't think they have
and everything.
People actually stuffing pencils into those boxes. No, I mean it's
right. It's all done by machine.
Yeah.
And it's not like, okay, I need a machine to put the eraser tip on this pencil. It's not like I'm going to sell 50 of them. I have to make a machine specifically for that and then sell it to a company who does that.
Yeah, they're customized. Not just specialized, but customized.
Right. They're custom made for specific purposes, and all of these machines, not all of them, many of these kinds of machines take some kind of computer system to either keep track of it or to run it. And, a lot of them times I need to put this eraser tip on my pencil, so I make a machine. How am I going to run this machine? I'll run it on, I guess, Windows XP, because that's what everybody's using at the time. And I create a program to control the equipment and put this on there and then record it, and then there, I'm done. I sell it to the manufacturer who uses it to make their pencils. Uses that along with a whole bunch of other machines like that.
Each one just as customized.
So I made some mechanical equipment. I made I made some mechanical. Okay. So I made electrical mechanical equipment. So I've got electronics controlling the mechanics of the machine, and then I made a computer that would talk to the electronics that control the mechanics of the machine. That computer ends up being a target as, say, Windows goes up to Windows 7 and then Windows 10. Windows stopped supporting XP, but my program was written on XP. Now, that guy cannot just go out and get a Windows 10 to replace the computer that I made for him to do this project. Because the hardware that I made is only going to communicate with this old computer that runs on XP. You can't use Windows 10. The technology didn't transfer to the newer systems. So, this guy's got a factory, and he's got a Windows XP machine in there, and the entire manufacturing of this pencil, there's a stopping point. There's a bottleneck at this Windows XP computer. And he needs the Windows XP computer, and he needs it to work. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to make pencils. That's where the problems come in. And that's where, if you could say hack that, and some of these most of them are made to where they don't have to be part of a network. But sometimes they do have to be part of a network. And that opens up a huge problem for a lot of, just me. I put my printers on a computer that might take Windows 7, and that Windows 7 computer needs to be online, and the computer needs to be able to put it on his network. But now it's a security threat. So he's got IT people going, ho, wait a minute, you can't put that on the network. And they say, well, okay, let's create some software that will protect it from being infected. And so they do that, and then they try to make it work.
And
then they call me and they say, this stopped working. And I come in and I say, well, you put all this other software on there. You can't do that. You got to take this off there. It's only going to work as a regular Windows 7, not updated machine. And they're like, well,
you can't put that on our network.
You see the problem here.
Yeah. I'll give you another
you could see
example.
how something like that would shut a place down, and it seems like something that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, again, I can see it happening. I can see it happening a lot.
I'll give you another example. When I worked for a little while at a place called Integral Technologies, they manufactured video capture cards, and as an extension of that, they had an arm of the business that sold enterprise level video. Call it, campus video surveillance. So that you would have your cameras out, and they all fed into one system, and they had their rules for motion detection and video capture and all that kind of stuff. But at one installation, and these are enterprise level, these are big, at one installation, things just weren't working. They'd get it all set up, start it, and then it wouldn't work. They eventually figured out that the IT policies of the place, and the IT people just went ahead and implemented this and rolled it out relative to the server that was storing all the video. All the hard drives had to be scanned regularly for viruses. Yeah. And so constantly it's like rechecking all of these hard drives and all the video files stored on these hard drives for viruses, and just bringing the entire video capture to a halt. Yes, the IT aspect is a real concern, but at the same time, there's a point where in order to get business done, you've got to say, well, you're going to have to throttle that back right here in this instance. Well, that leaves open potentially a vulnerability, a vector of attack.
Yeah. I probably get at least once every other week a service call where I go in and I find out the problem is that IT somehow either isolated the computer or cut the computer's communications because of vulnerabilities. And I have to say, this isn't going to work. And the only way to do it is there is no way to do it. It's vulnerable. And so, we find ways around it, which I won't talk about, but the fact is that this is how these kinds of things can happen, because it sounds silly at first when they say a meat packing plant got shut down by a virus attack. That doesn't even make any sense. But then I start thinking about it, and I think about my own job, and I think, well, yeah, it kind of does make sense.
It does make sense, yeah. That's,
So I wanted to point that out with all these ransomware attacks, but I think what I said last week still holds here. I think this is leading somewhere. I think this is leading to some kind of government intervention. Mm-hmm. And it might also...
say, okay, we're going to solve the problem by making all your computers comply with this government standard or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it might also have something to do with cryptocurrency, because that's how most of these places are getting paid off.
Oh, as you funnel more true because every time a company pays off somebody like that, they have to funnel their actual real currency, their US dollars assets, into that cryptocurrency system. And so the more of that money you funnel into the cryptocurrency, the more the cryptocurrency gains credibility and status as a potential real currency.
Yeah. So the government might decide, okay, we're going to shut down Bitcoin. I don't know how they could do that, but that might be really the direction that all this is leading.
I mean, at most they could say, oh, we're going to, and I don't know what pretext they would use constitutionally, but they could say like, oh, we're going to make it illegal to run a Bitcoin node in the United States or something like that. But, that would be, I think, about as...
Well, for example, as I mentioned last week, it is illegal to... I can't remember which group, but I think it's Evil.Corp or Evil Corp or something. It's illegal to pay them ransom money.
Oh, really? Even if you need it in order to stay alive and stay in business?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah. So that's why I think there's more than we understand going on with all these ransomware attacks.
We'll have to see where it goes then.
I don't know. I think the Democrats are behind this. I say that about everything, but I don't... This is going somewhere. It didn't start until Biden was in office. I mean, it's always been a part of, American life, is that you have to protect yourself against ransomware. But all these huge industries were not getting shut down.
Yeah.
And now they are.
And now it's suddenly...
There's something suspicious about this. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
Okay. So the Swiss president has said he's broken off his talks with European Union. I guess they were trying to get him into the union, and he's saying we're just not going to do it because of freedom of movement and wage things. And
I know that there's a lot of benefits that they hold out, but it's kind of a siren song there. So he's probably better off. Keeping his country out of the EU.
Yeah. UN Human Rights Council authorizes an open-ended investigation into the human rights violations committed during the Palestine-Israel conflict.
Committed by whom?
They're
going to say by Israel.
They're not
right?
saying, but I think it's Israel. They're investigating Israel. That's what's going on. And Israel, Netanyahu is like, we know what's going on here, and I'm tired of it. Yeah. But they're still going to do it. Meanwhile, we've also got Lindsey Graham goes to Israel to meet with Netanyahu because they're talking about forming a new government there, and I don't know why. Lindsey Graham, remember how much talk he was during the Trump administration? Remember how he talked so big? And it was like, maybe there's been a change to you, but you've always been a weakling.
Yeah.
And now that Trump's in, maybe you feel bolstered, and so you're going to do some things. But he never did anything.
Yeah.
It's always all been talk. The guy's useless. And then, there's still these headlines coming up. Like, Israeli forces shoot, a 20-year... Start over. Israeli forces shoot 28-year-old Palestinian man during protest near Nablus. I see a whole bunch of headlines like that, and it's like, and it's like, come on.
Okay, the guy was...
They didn't just walk up and shoot someone.
He was carrying a gun, and he was aiming it at some embassy or some ambassador or something, or he was,
and he got shot.
He was strapped with a bomb or something. There was something else there that's part of the story that they're not telling us.
So we've got more of the same of that. Israel is... It's a shame, kind of, what's happening. We'll maybe talk about this more someday in a full podcast just on the whole Israeli thing going on. Bill Cosby is denied parole. He will stay in prison. I didn't even know he was in prison.
What's he in prison for?
I wonder if he's got like a...
I mean, I know he was a scoundrel. I found out that he was like
regular prison.
Like, he was like having, sex with girls backstage and stuff like that. I forget what all the,
Yeah, but they were saying that he was drugging them, and...
Was that what it was? He was drugging them and stuff?
He was drugging them and then doing things, and there was, I don't even remember because I guess I didn't care all that much. But he was one of the people who kind of kicked off this whole Me Too movement.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Because various girls stepping forward. Oh yeah, he did that to me too, like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a lot of women apparently.
That's. I mean, I know that the shock to everybody and the I don't know if you want to call it irony, but he was kind of always known as the more wholesome comedian. Compared to people like Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and stuff like that.
Right. It's odd that the left has shunned him compared to other people that they haven't shunned. And it's like, oh, why is this happening? You know, why didn't they do this with Bill Clinton?
Yeah.
I have to wonder if there was a political problem with him, you know? I don't know. I mean, if he did these things, he should pay for them, but I have to wonder
is
why.
there something else to it?
Because basically they canceled him. Look, go try to watch The Cosby Show on any station now, and you don't find it. It's not there.
Right.
I didn't see it on Netflix or anything, so The Cosby Show, the Fat Albert Show, you can't find that. A lot of these shows, if you want to watch them, you have to pirate them.
Wow.
You have to just like a lot of the older Disney movies. If you want to watch them, you got to pirate them. So I don't know. We grew up watching it. We thought it was hilarious when we were kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, right before all this kind of started happening, The Cosby Show was on Netflix, I think. And I started watching a few episodes, and I thought, this is just so boring. I don't know why I would like this. It's just not funny.
Isn't it weird?
So, yeah, it's weird. Republicans in the Senate have blocked the commission to investigate the January 6th thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the January 6th non-event.
Yeah, we gotta find a way to describe that, the way to talk about it, instead of the January 6th riot or coup or whatever the hell they want to call it.
I call it the non-event.
Yeah, the non-event.
Nothing happened. I mean, it's like...
But it's more than that. Because aside from nothing happening, they tried to make something happen.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen, they still act like it did happen.
The January 6th, what would you call it? The failed entrapment?
That would be a good way to describe it. That's what it was.
At least what it was, yeah. I mean, with the guards inviting people into the Capitol so that they can then, say, oh yeah, look at them. They're in the Capitol. Let's prosecute them.
It's insane. Anyway, so the Senate did block it. This is,
okay. Well, kudos to,
this is the first filibuster used by the Senate in this session.
Yeah.
You know, the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs is complaining about China because China's quote fishing vessels are kind of invading their territory. I think that's just going to keep getting worse. I think China's going to take most of these territories that used to be U.S. territories. I think China's going to take them.
You know, as China starts flexing its muscles,
they did it with British territories, but
yeah. Well, these are opportunities for the United States to go out and make friends in the world by pushing back against China.
Yeah,
there's no way Biden's going to do that, but that's what these are opportunities.
And this would not be happening if Trump were president.
No, it wouldn't have gotten this far even. That's right.
Yeah. So this is kind of weird. A major Austrian Muslim organization, they filed a lawsuit against Austria because Austria published a map listing the location of all the country's mosques and Islamic associations.
That's funny. We, as Catholics, we kind of get together and do that ourselves. You ever, masstimes.org?
Yeah, I need to know where to go. Why would I want to know I want to know people who are Catholic. Why are they hiding where their mosques are?
That is weird.
Don't they have to go worship and stuff? It's weird. It's odd that they would care. As if there's a whole bunch of people doing bad thing to mosques.
Yeah, waiting. I mean, I know that they're persecuting Muslims in China the same way they're persecuting Christians. Actually, probably not the same way. They're probably persecuting Christians far worse. But I know that, okay, in China, Muslims are being hit. And in other parts of the world, Muslims are looked at with a little bit of distrust by some people. Mm-hmm. But to complain about somebody saying, hey, if you're Muslim, here's where you want to worship. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Hundreds of black gun owners from around the U.S. See, this doesn't make any sense to me. Hundreds of black
Are you talking about black men who own guns or people who own black guns?
That's the way That's what I'm getting. That's what I think is going on. So black people who own guns go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and march there to remember the Tulsa Race Massacre. I don't know anything about the Tulsa Race Massacre. I don't know what that is. But this is 100 years ago. Oh. This is the 100th anniversary. So this is something that happened.
So black...
Yeah.
But partakers.
This is like New Black Party. Right. Yeah. These are, like Black Panther. There's a lot of Black Power and Black Lives Matter chants. But I don't understand why. Are there that few black gun owners?
Yeah, that's weird.
That hundreds come from all over the U.S. just to go to Tulsa? The thing is, in any gun club,
there's more than
black
100.
Men would be welcomed. And
it's like
it would be, okay, you're a gun owner and you happen to be black. I don't know why there's a black gun owner and a white gun owner.
They wouldn't even be noticed as being black.
Right. Right. If a black guy came in with a gun, they'd be like, hey, come on over and shoot this one and let me see your piece and things like that. It's just weird that this happened. I think it's weird that black gun... Why didn't white gun owners...
What's a black gun owner? Yeah, exactly.
That's it's dumb. Chinese gun owners. And,
I gotta...
Oh, well.
I gotta say, did I ever tell you about the... I was looking for... I was doing research on shoes because I wanted to get a pair of nice buy once and keep forever shoes. And so I was doing research and, full grain leather and all that kind of stuff. And somebody posted a question. The original poster was just naive and innocent about black men's leather shoes. And so there was all this discussion. Okay, do you mean black leather shoes for men? Or do you mean leather shoes for black men?
Black men's owner
or
shoes. Yeah.
Do you mean shoes made of leather from black men's hides?
Well, that's just disgusting.
I know. But it was just when you were talking about the black...
If you said black men's leather shoes, I would assume you're talking about shoes that are black that are made for men.
And made of leather. Yeah. Shoes made from black leather for men. That's what I assumed when I read it. Then I started reading the extra comments. I thought, wow.
But maybe...
He really stepped in it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people were obviously, misconstruing just for the humor, but still.
Yeah. China announces that it will replace the 2-child policy with a 3-child policy.
Oh.
So couples are now allowed to have 3 children.
How?
This is so...
That is so weird. That's like...
Why don't Americans see the problem with this?
I know. Why doesn't China remain, international foreign enemy number 1 just because of that policy alone? Whether it's any N-child policy, plug any number you want into N, and they should be foreign public enemy number 1.
How can people not see this? How can people not see that they kill children because you've had too many?
Yeah,
it's sick.
It's like, did you ever see that movie with Christopher Lambert? Kind of a B movie, but action sci-fi. I think it's called The Fortress, where his wife is pregnant, but you're not allowed to have children without a license. I mean, it's kind of like like China spread throughout the globe, and she's like caught and captured, and then he's put in prison, and then and the story is him escaping with her and stuff like that.
No,
I think it's called The Fortress. Let me look it up real quick. He was in Hail Caesar. Did you ever see Hail Caesar?
No.
I have not either. My kids tell me that it's a movie about somebody making a movie about the resurrection of Christ and the emperor trying to find out where did they hide Jesus' body. Yeah, it's not called The Fortress, it's just called Fortress. 1992.
Okay. Why are we talking about this?
Because his illegally pregnant wife. That's the connection to the China policy. his wife is illegally pregnant, which is why he's imprisoned. It's a if you like that kind of movie, it's okay. It's what I would call a B movie, though.
Amazon quietly changes the terms of service to allow customers to file lawsuits.
Yeah, against like suppliers who are
against
shipping
them,
from Amazon?
and arbitrate demand on behalf of Echo users. But see, I don't know what. Hold on, let me.
I wonder if they did this in order to avoid a potential future class action or something like that.
Okay, Echo is the kind of the Alexa service.
Oh,
and
that's right.
I guess people were suing. Here's the problem: if you want to use it, you sign all kinds of agreements.
Yeah.
One of those is I can't sue Amazon or Echo, I think. And instead of suing, you have to use an arbitration service. Right. The thing is, I guess they're only talking about Echo users.
Oh, okay.
This. I don't think they're talking about generally suing
I'm
Amazon
not an Echo user because I'm not going to bring a surveillance tool into my home anyway.
There are, I guess, currently something like 75,000 arbitration demands on behalf of Echo users.
Oh, and they're overloading the arbitration.
Overwhelming.
They're overloading the arbitration company. So I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and dump this onto the civil courts.
I think these arbitration agreements should all be eliminated. I wish the government would step in here, and I don't like the government stepping in on anything. But in this case, I wish all these arbitration agreements that most people have signed and have no idea they've signed them. And
I guess if they have no idea they signed them, that would be one thing. I'm not against the concept of third-party arbitration rather than, civil court.
I mean, most people, if you own a credit card, you can't just sue the credit card company.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a cell phone. As a matter of fact, almost anything you use that you sign for nowadays, you're signing away your rights to sue.
An arbitration agreement instead.
And if you're employed, you also often sign away your right to sue your employer. Mm-hmm. That, I think, is a huge problem, especially with Amazon. Now, Amazon, I worked at Amazon for a while. There was a guy there who was kind of a creep. Everybody knew he was a creep. And one of the girls there was back in one of the little aisles doing normal picking stuff. And he kind of trapped her in that aisle and made a move on her. And it was to the point of being, I guess, groping, assault. I don't know what you would call it.
Wow.
But
he's touching her and she's
you'd get in
not
pretty
wanting
big
it.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. This guy was not fired.
Wow.
They moved him to another facilities, and I think he even got a pay. And she was told she's not allowed to talk about it with anyone. And she,
or she'd be fired.
Kind of went, and she went to a lawyer, and he said, "Look, you can't sue him. There's nothing you can do."
Well, okay, but short of suing them,
I mean, you can file an arbitration. She's not allowed to talk about it either.
Well, okay, but not allowed to talk about it, or what?
Or they can sue her. They can sue her. She can't sue them.
Oh, so she actually signed an agreement.
So you sign an agreement when you get hired that I'm not going to go talk about my company in a bad light.
Okay, that's interesting. So by bringing this up now, are you violating that agreement? I mean, you're not opening yourself up, are you? Because you're talking about Amazon in a bad light, and you used to work for them.
Yeah, I kind of don't care.
Well, you can't split.
If they sue me, what are they going to get? There's nothing to.
That's
true.
You
can't get blood out of a turnip. So it's one of the great things about being poor is, I guess they could throw me in jail, but at that point,
but we don't have any such.
Then
thing
I'd
as
talk all the
jail.
more.
Jail.
Yeah. So
I mean, you can sue somebody for damages, but you don't go to jail except for a crime.
And of course, I'm not mentioning any names than Amazon. And this was policy, and this is just what they did. And it was like, there was nothing she could do. I think people don't think about that kind of a situation when you're signing up to get a job, you know?
Kind of like the
I just want to go
in the
work.
80s, wasn't it?
And earn money and feed my family, and I'm signing up to not be able to defend myself when some guy gropes me. You know, I think that's criminal. I don't think these arbitration agreements should hold up in court, but they do, and I think that might be because of of a court system that's kind of
overworked
under
anyway.
a heavy load already.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is. I just don't think this is the answer. Did you know eBay stopped no longer allows users to use PayPal?
Really? Well, kudos to them.
Why do you say that?
I've always hated PayPal.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, they've been making a lot of political decisions that really make me angry. But from the start, to me, PayPal was this is an easy way for the common guy who wants to own a small business but can't pay fees to these giant credit card companies. You know what? This is an easy way to sidestep the credit card companies. That's why I like them.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you why. I had an incident with PayPal. I used it for something or other. Signed up a credit card. Had the credit card number in the system. Then time went by. Didn't life happened. Time goes by. Whatever. But I had the same credit card. So it's like, oh, I need to do some PayPal stuff. I'll set up a PayPal account. Put the credit card number in. Oh, you can't do that because that credit card's already in an account. Something like that.
Yeah.
And in order to use the account, you have to, go into the original account that the credit card's in, and then you get, blah, blah, blah. Well, the account is tied to your email address. Well, that email address doesn't exist anymore. And I tell you, there was, because I had moved, the email address literally did not exist anymore. And there was no recourse. PayPal could not solve the problem. I thought, these guys are such nincompoops and so incompetent to not be able to solve this problem. I've just refused to deal with them since then. On a technological level, I decided they're nincompoops.
Okay. I see. To me, I can see this happening. I can see why it happens. All you had to do is cancel the credit card number and use another credit card.
Yeah, like I should have to do that.
Well, you're the one who lost the email address and everything. No, why are you blaming them?
The email address doesn't exist anymore because that was back in the day when your ISP was your local provider. If you moved, you had a different email address by definition. This should have been a problem that PayPal should have been ready for people. Nobody had .gmail.com.
Okay, but you lost the email. You lost
moved.
You moved. You lost the password to log into that PayPal account and be able to change your email address, right?
I don't remember whether it was that I lost the password or
they
that it was that they needed to send something to that email address in order to log in.
Okay, could be that.
But whatever it was a problem that within that era, a technology company should have had a way to resolve, and they could not resolve it. And I decided that they're nincompoops.
Because I deal with... I think I'm the only one in my family who actually keeps track of account names and numbers and passwords and stuff. I am constantly seeing this in my household with all the other members of the family. Because they register something and then they no longer have that email and then they can't... And I see it happen a whole lot.
Yeah.
Probably 3 or 4 times a year with various companies. And it's like, well, I don't know what to say. You should have kept track of your stuff.
I do that now.
All right.
In fact, it's the modern trend of making people have X number of complexities within their email address. You have to have so many of this kind of thing and so many of that kind of thing. And then you have to, some places will even make you change it every 3 months and stuff like that. Those things,
it's ridiculous.
And in fact, what it does is it makes things less secure because the only way you're going to keep track of it, especially it's like, well, okay, they tell you don't use the same email address don't use the same password for everything. Because then if somebody cracks one, they've got it all, whatever. So you got to have all these different passwords and stuff. The only way for a lot of people to keep track of it is to write it down. Because a lot of people who need to keep track of this stuff, they can't necessarily, I know that they have these so-called password managers out there, and they're just so inconvenient, and some people probably can't even figure out how to use them. So ultimately, I think this stuff actually makes things less secure than if they would.
I think it probably does
stuff, because you get into somebody's desk and it's like, okay, wait a minute, let me just find the right drawer and I can see. Oh yeah, there's where he's got all his passwords written down. Now I don't do that. I don't write them down like that and leave them around. But there are people who do, and I think there are more people who do that than who would have crackable passwords if you just throttled back, the level of requirements on some of these.
Just some of the rules, yeah.
But I do have a way of keeping track of all of mine now.
Okay. So you hate PayPal.
But I don't like PayPal.
Or you dislike them.
Yeah.
Okay. They've been the main way that I've made money for the past 20 years.
So. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, there are other options to that.
Anyway, but they I know there are now, but for a while there weren't.
Yeah.
PayPal was either you pay a whole bunch of money to accept credit cards or you use PayPal. That used to be it.
Cheap and easy.
And they enabled a lot of people, small guys, to make money. So we've suspended all oil and gas drilling in Alaska.
Really?
Or at least in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Pending further investigation, whatever.
Investigation of what?
I don't know. How it, the environmental impact.
Hundreds of feet below the ground impacts the environment of birds and stuff?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it is. It's until we are more dependent on Arabian oil is what it really is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Gosh,
it's BS.
The Biden administration is such a joke.
Yeah. I don't understand this one. U.S. Department of Homeland Security terminates the Remain in Mexico policy.
Oh, this was where if you apply for asylum... So Trump instituted the idea. You've got to stay where you're coming from. You can't come into the country, apply for asylum, and then expect to be let go free to roam around our country and disappear down a rabbit hole. You stay in Mexico or wherever country of origin while you apply for asylum, and if you're granted it, then you come into this country. Mm-hmm. And so that's the Remain in Mexico policy, and Biden is
cheap labor is on its way back.
Yep, that's right. So we're the Democrats.
All the people who got pay
class.
Raises over the past 4 years can expect them to disappear soon.
That's the thing. The Democrats have always been about slavery, and this is the Mexican
slavery
influx is their new path to having a slave labor force.
Yeah, it's a shame. Okay, Australian and Chinese researchers announced the discovery of 2 new distinct species of woolly flying squirrels in the Himalayan.
Wow.
In the Himalayas.
Why is that news?
This goes back to what we talked about yesterday. I don't believe it.
Wait,
I don't think they are 2 distinct species. I think you could...
Oh, is it based on
I think you
DNA?
could make these 2 animals. No, I don't know if it's I don't think it is even. I think they're just announcing they found 2 new squirrels. But the thing is...
2 new variants.
I don't...
It's like...
why are they different species?
Yeah, maybe they're... Yeah. You could probably mate them.
Why not subspecies or something?
And the results would be, each would be reproducible with the parent stock. That's...
Yeah.
That's usually what delineates a species from just a variant within a species.
Or at least that's what it used to be, but it's...
Yeah, but scientists needed to start...
You can easier make the case for macroevolution if that's not true anymore.
Oh.
So we could just call it, this species came from this species. We actually witnessed it happen. And it's like, no, you didn't witness it happen. You witnessed one species change a little bit. That's what you witnessed.
Yeah.
You did not witness 2 species come from each other. Oh well. I got another science one. Where was it? Okay, so NASA has announced 2 new missions to Venus.
Oh, okay.
For 2028 and 2030. So the last mission to Venus, specifically to Venus, was the Magellan mission in 1989. It's been a while since we've been there. And we're going to map out the surface and things like that. How do you map that out?
Well, probably instruments from from the air, like I mean,
yeah, I know.
Orbit around the
I'm
planet.
Saying, but the
with
atmosphere
all the clouds
is
and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe they have
the
some
atmosphere is 90 times thicker than the atmosphere of the Earth.
But probably
denser,
radar can penetrate that. I mean, maybe they've got a radar-based ground mapping
it's like
instrument or
practically water.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a thick...
It's like being in a super sauna.
You know, another thing is how do they get these satellites to stay functional that close to the sun? That's another thing that amazes me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the amount of radiation hitting those things from the sun has got to be incredible.
They you know that they have to have some kind of extra shielding on those.
So anyway,
and very hardened electronics.
Yeah, it's a long time from now. Not till 2028 and 2030, but still kind of cool.
Yeah,
we're still doing some things in space. Kentucky Derby winner Medina Spirit has tested positive for a drug test and now faces disqualification. What I don't understand is disqualification as in you can no longer race, or disqualification as in you did not win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I don't know how it works in horse racing.
Honestly,
I don't know how it works in racing sports too.
Do you remember the Kentucky Derby where the guy broke out of his lane and bumped the winner, the guy who was winning? The guy who was winning dropped back because he got ran into, and then another guy flew out in front and won?
No.
It was a few years ago.
I've never been aware of a specific Kentucky Derby.
I watched the race, and I was sitting there, I was like, wait a minute, that guy just came in and, bumped him, which I know you're not allowed to do, and that caused him to lose and another guy to win. And I remember watching it, thinking about this. I wonder if that's legal. And apparently it's not legal, but the loser made a big deal about it because it was like, hey, I was winning.
Yeah.
And now this other guy wins.
Well, we'll see how they do then. Whether they
I remember it was a big thing. It was a couple
what?
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I got a few things. I didn't think I was going to have very much today, but I do have a few.
Okay.
The first one is my Walmart story. So,
yay!
This doesn't happen in the store. So apparently Walmart in a town of central Maine, it's kind of funny. The guy's name is Tony Bennett. A couple of nearby towns, they accumulated large amounts of trash that, at the stores, and they basically pushed all the trash down to a river embankment.
The store did?
Yeah, 100 foot wide, 20 feet wide, or 100 foot long, 20 feet wide swath.
Jeez.
And I guess this is still land that Walmart owns, though. So they just kind of pushed it out of the parking lot down the embankment towards the river, not in the river, but onto the river embankment. So he's he's so disgusted by this that he goes and starts picking the trash up and putting it in the trash bags. They called the police on him and told him he had to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and I guess they told reporters that the company headquarters was sending a cleanup crew to take care of the trash. But it's
okay.
Why couldn't you just take a click?
Well, maybe they were literally running their own little certified
trash dump?
Landfill? Yeah, dump.
Who knows? I mean, they could have said that if that's the case, but maybe then the local the townspeople wouldn't have liked that very much. I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
So
there's a couple weird little things there. That reminds me of the Arlo Guthrie song, the Allison's Restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Where they threw away the trash and then went to prison for it.
Yeah. Okay, this one is kind of... All the rest of them actually are not, like, funny, but they're just kind of fun. But this one, a guy from Arkansas caught a fish, and if you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a goldfish. But look closer. Well, no, it's actually, based on the shape and everything, it's a largemouth bass. And apparently, this is like an extremely rare, like 1 in a million fish that he caught, a gold-colored largemouth bass. I kind of suspect maybe it's an albino or something like that. And then he ended up throwing it back.
A breed?
What's that?
Or is it like a mutation?
Xanthochromosome is a genetic variation in various vertebrates characterized by local or general absence of black or brown pigment. It's basically, it is that.
Yeah.
It's basically
it's like
an albino. Yeah, like an albino fish.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
So, yeah, it is cool. He ended up throwing it back.
I wonder how big a fight it put up.
I don't know, but it's a few pounds. They've got a picture of him holding it. Okay, so then there's another wildlife thing. There's actually a video of this. So I guess these bear cubs were like walking along a wall with their mama, and these dogs came out and started yapping at them. And the bear cubs ran away, but the mama started swiping at the dogs. Well, this 17-year-old girl, who I guess is the owner of these dogs, like panicked and went into, I guess her own mama bear mode, and went and shoved the bear off the wall.
Wow.
I know. It's like, that could have gone badly
and
for her.
They've got a video of her doing that?
They've got a video, and it's very clear. It's like taken from, I don't know, one of those...
These black bears?
It is a black, but, the thing is, it's not black colored, but I think it's a black bear species.
Okay.
But...
See, when we go down to the gorge, we're always warned out. Be careful of bears.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced I can outrun one.
I've heard that you might be able to outrun one short term. Like, you could run faster than one. But I've heard that they don't give up.
Oh, well, that would
keep going
stink.
and going
I'm
and
thinking,
going. Yeah.
I had a plan that so we're camping, let's say, in the middle of the night we wake up, there's a bear. And, like, some of the people in the group are kind of bigger and slower than the rest of us. So my plan was, and I always bet my kids and I talk about this, and we have a running bet that this will happen someday. I'm going to run up and spank the bear, and then run away and kind of keep it busy while somebody gets their gun or whatever, so that they can finally get rid of it. But if I ever see a black bear and I'm able to get close enough to it, I am going to spank it. Hopefully somebody will film that, and it'll be even cooler than the girl who pushed the bear off the wall.
Whoever's dumb enough to film it is going to be the one the bear ends up getting.
Yeah, maybe. No, that's just it. I'm going to distract him,
Well,
he'll go after me, because I'm the one who came up and spanked him.
I don't think the bear makes the distinction. It's like, okay, I'm in a situation. I'm going to go after whoever's nearby. Okay, I hope you read a lot more about bears before you do something like that. And let me get up into a tree. No, never mind. Bears can climb trees.
Not climb trees faster than we can. But I can climb a tree pretty darn fast. I just...
You know what? I can climb down a tree
Also, I can get down from a tree. Yeah. Well, bears are slowed down more than up, I think. But I'm not sure.
Well, there you go. All right.
So I'll just climb up and then jump down.
Yeah. Next, we've got a A guy returns, and I thought you'd appreciate this, a Bob Dylan album to an Ohio library 48 years late.
Huh.
Bob Dylan's self-portrait album. I guess he checked it out in 1973 from University Heights Library. Recently returned it, along with a payment of $175. I guess that's considered the replacement fee. That's the fee, yeah, for 48 years. No, it's the replacement cost rather than an actual accumulated fee or whatever.
Replacement cost is $4.99. No, I can get a vinyl for $14.88.
Well, I don't know. He said that's
what songs are on there?
I don't know, but the replacement fee would be for an unplayed vinyl.
I wonder all the tired horses. I don't see anything really all that great.
Is it more of a?
I'm gonna have to. I know I've got it. I'll have to listen
you have
to
that
it
one, okay.
And see if there's anything. Well, I have as far as I know, I have his full discography as collected by pirates across America. So I guess I probably have this one. If not, I'll get it.
This album traveled all the way to San Francisco and back before being returned to the library 48 years later.
I see. Here's the thing. I wonder if he has some kind of reason he wants to go to the library, and they're like, well, you need to return this album.
I need to check something out. Well, shoot. Gosh, I didn't know about that. Let me go get the album.
I can't imagine any other reason to
bring it back.
Do that, other than if you needed to...
No, that's not it, because he mailed it back.
Oh, he mailed... Yeah, but, okay.
Along with a letter apologizing for the tardiness.
If you...
That sounds like a guy who's just
most local libraries
in life.
give you access to databases like ERIC and research databases. Free access.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to use those databases to do some kind of research, you can do it through your library, but you have to have a library account.
Oh. Well, what he said
I've done it.
He just said that as a recent retiree, I'm taking the opportunity to turn my attention to some of the many vignettes of life that, by dint of career and family, have been neglected these many years. And this was one of them.
Okay. Well, good for you,
I'm getting
guess.
old. I feel bad about having this album, so I would have not bothered.
Yeah. As if they still
care.
Give out vinyl records.
Yeah. Where exactly in the library are they going to put that? What part of their collection would that go in?
Right. Now if they just happen to have it, it'll go into some kind of museum part
that's right.
of the library. Okay.
All right. Anyway, okay, final one. This is in London, and this is actually kind of cool. I don't know how many people would like this, would make use of it, or what. But in London, they've got a pool. Okay, so you can imagine a pool on top of like a skyscraper building, right? Well, imagine a pool that is suspended between two skyscrapers, and then imagine the bottom of the pool being transparent.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are you saying pole?
Pool.
P-O-L-E?
No. Swimming pool.
A swimming pool on top of a skyscraper.
Yeah, you can have a swimming... You've seen that swimming pool on top of buildings. But imagine one suspended between two skyscrapers.
How would you even do that?
And then imagine the bottom of that pool being transparent.
I can't imagine that being an existing thing.
115 feet in the air between two London skyscrapers. You can see pictures of it on Twitter. There's some Twitter videos of it and stuff that are pretty cool. Show people, jumping around, swimming and stuff.
Is 115 feet really all that high?
Well, I don't know.
Would you call that a skyscraper?
You know what? I probably wouldn't, but who knows? In London... in London, you need
maybe they don't know how to make big buildings.
You need a license to watch TV in London, so maybe that's a skyscraper.
If I go downtown, 115 feet is not a skyscraper. That's just a building.
No, I mean how tall? How high is
But
the
I
Torre
guess
Tower?
for the news story, I don't know.
I'm going to look.
Maybe
it up.
I'm wrong. Maybe 115 is a.
Whoops.
Tower. Me and Gus went there.
574 feet. Now that's a skyscraper.
Yeah,
right?
That's a skyscraper.
Yeah.
And I can say a tall building is maybe 250 feet.
Okay, but here's the thing.
That's tall.
Dad's house is what, 35 feet tall?
Something like that.
Okay, stack three of those.
It's about 40.
40? Okay.
Okay, three of those.
Three of those
That's
on top of
high.
each other. And that twice, and suspend a pool beneath it with a see-through bottom. Actually, the whole pool is see-through. As suspended. Not just the bottom, but the sides
like a
too.
Glass. I wouldn't go swimming in that pool.
I totally would. That would be so fun. But yeah, I could see where it would make a lot of people
so
nervous.
You get a snorkel and just lay there face down
On the bottom.
looking down with goggles or whatever,
right against the
and
glass.
then it's like I'm flying.
I know.
Floating,
that would be so fun.
That's what, yeah. I wouldn't.
I guess some
of
people
heights.
have taken some pictures from below, which I can't find any. I saw pictures from below initially, but I can't find any on the page now.
We got that when we were painting Dad's house. Jason rented one of those cherry pickers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was I don't know if that was 40 foot or 60 foot. I guess it was 40 foot.
Yeah, it didn't go 20 feet taller than Dad's house.
Dale is the one who controlled it because he
Was the one
used
who
to
rented
using
it.
them.
Yeah.
And he would take us each up, up to extend it fully. Just being in that scared me. My legs were shaking and all rubbery.
Now, see, that doesn't make
I don't
any
like
sense.
being that high.
Because we go to the gorge every year.
I know. I know, but I get scared when I get close to the edge. I don't get...
I know, but you don't start shaking and stuff.
I know, because I'm on ground.
Oh.
You're on the ground.
Okay.
Once you're off the ground...
I guess that's the difference.
They have some steps at UC. They have some glass steps. I have a really hard time going up those.
I've never been to that
There's
part.
glass steps, and then there's a rail, and there's a wall there, but the wall is glass as well. So all you've got is pretty much the rail and like a frame of steps, and that's all you see. Otherwise, you're up there looking down on everything. I don't like it.
But where
and
is
it
this?
only goes
We've
like
never been
2 or
there.
3
I've-
at UC.
Oh, at UC, I thought you were still talking about
College.
the gorge. Okay.
No, I'm talking about at a one of the in the medical science building.
Okay.
At UC, where I go to every now and then. I'd go there to fix machines.
Right.
And I finally
Did you find another route?
made somebody give me they wanted me to come up and fix their machine. I said, look, I'm sorry, you're going to have to meet me down there and give me an elevator pass because I'm not going on them steps. And she said, all right, I'll meet you down there and we'll take the elevator.
You need a pass for the elevator? On a college
For
campus?
some reason, it was, I think because the elevator went to certain floors that weren't accessible from the steps.
Oh, okay.
So they were only, I don't know why. For some reason, I couldn't just take the elevator. Maybe the room I had to get into needed a pass. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I don't know. It was a weird thing, but I couldn't go on that. But the weird part about this is when I get to steps, I have a hard time walking up steps. I don't know why,
like
but I
any
get to
old
steps and I feel like you run. You go up steps. You go up steps fast.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing it ever since, I don't know how long.
I got past that because...
Even at work.
You run up steps at work? Yeah.
And I've got these giant tool bags. Some of them weigh like 75 pounds. But I get to those steps and I'm like, I can't go
so
slow.
skinny.
I got to run up these steps. So I get to glass steps and then I'm like, well, now I don't know what to do. My instinct is to run, but I know I'm going to fall if I do that. So I'll just take the elevator.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got.
Okay. Well, that's all we got time for. 'Cause we're
Yeah,
pretty
God.
late.
It's like 2 hours.
I gotta go to bed.
And change.
All right. Well, folks, think about what we said. And look, if you couldn't bear with this podcast because of the technical nature of it, we'll do something non-technical next week. Of course, if you could, I don't know. You know, some people like it.
Yeah. And it wasn't all that technical.
There's a lot of people who would just skip it. No, it wasn't real technical, but it explained technical things.
Yeah.
And some people just find that so incredibly boring, they don't want to know the explanation. It's like, it works, that's all I care about. I don't need to know how. And I never understood that.
Me neither.
But, you know, we'll see you next week, and as always,
circle the beads.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.